This is Jenna Jameson, and you are listening to something that's incredibly intellectual.
Welcome back to the Intellectual Podcast. I'm your host, David Dawson. This is episode number 181 with Jodi Cilley returning to the podcast for her third time, this time to talk about the upcoming San Diego Film Week. It's the talk of the community right now, and for good reason. San Diego Film Week is bringing together some of the top and most influential film festivals in San Diego, as well as some of the best films that local film producers have produced in the last year and beyond. Actually, there's some oldies but goodies in the mix as well, including Intellectual Podcast favorite hashtag What's the Vig. I know Mark Atkinson is super excited. Speaking of Mark Atkinson, a special shout out to him right now. Dude, I don't know exactly what happened, but you implied that a car fell on you and you spent 36 hours in the hospital. But I saw today that you're out and about and you're doing okay. And we here are very, very happy to hear that, Mark. Get better, get well. We look forward to you joining us again on the podcast when you are ready. Some quick notes. San Diego Film Week, Intellectual Entertainment has four films at San Diego Film Week. So be on the lookout for them. We have 2 films during the 48-hour film project From Dream to Screen programming block. That's Sunday night, February 12th at 8 p.m. at the Museum of Photographic Arts. We also have our film In Situ screening Thursday night as part of the Right in the Feels drama programming block. And all 3 of those films are special edition versions of the films. They are not the versions that screened at the 48 or at 4 Points. So you maybe have never seen these versions before, and I think you'll really like them. They have enhanced visual effects, improved audio, and in some cases, improved edits and screenwriting. So be sure to check those out. We look forward to seeing you there. Also, we are closing out Film Week with a special screening of What's the Vig at the Digital Gym. So be sure to check that out. It's 1:30 p.m. on February 19th. And to kick everything off, Whitney Wegman and I will be joining Keith Foster on the red carpet at the Lafayette Hotel to host the first ever San Diego Film Week red carpet, which will be Facebook Lived. So be sure to check us out on Facebook as you're getting ready and heading into the gala. And then be sure to say hi to us at the gala as well. And now, to talk in great length about San Diego Film Week, here is the woman herself, the mastermind behind the Film Consortium, Miss Jodi Cilley, on the 181st episode of the Intellectual Podcast.
Talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. The Intellectual Podcast starts now.
1, 2, 3. Calling all cars.
Calling all cars. It is Super Bowl Sunday. Not that that matters to me. Does it matter to you?
Well, I did happen to watch the last quarter.
You're a New Englander, right? So
I am, and I'm not really a sports fan, but I happened to be sitting in front of it while I was eating some food at a restaurant. And it was kind of an impressive little comeback there at the end.
Yeah.
By the Patriots.
I'm not a big Tom Brady fan, so oh well.
I don't
Jodi
know
Cilley,
enough.
hi.
I don't know enough to be a fan or not be a fan. So, Facebook either loves them or hates them, so I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, well, I think anytime anybody's successful at anything, they've got their lovers and their haters.
Yes, true.
So very quickly, I checked our history of you on the podcast. It seemed like you've been on the podcast a whole bunch, but you only did 2 episodes with us.
A long time ago.
And they were 2 years ago this February.
Things have changed since then.
Yeah, lots and lots and lots of things have changed since then.
Is there a cough button like in the radio?
No. Just turn away.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough.
She's got the black lung pop. So 2 years ago, when you first sat down on the podcast with us, we were approaching the second annual Film Awards, right?
I think it's be the third annual, right?
Last year was the third, right?
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Second annual.
So we were approaching the second annual Film
Still
Awards.
at the Horton Grand Hotel.
And that was the first time that I had a nomination.
Yes.
I was nominated for writing for Unlucky Charms.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I had practically like just met.
Yep.
So,
It's true.
yeah, kind of.
Wow, we're still around each other.
I know.
It's a good sign.
In the time since, lots of things have happened, but not the least of which is like Film in Diego.
Yep. Film in Diego happened.
I would say, incredible growth of the Film Awards.
Yes.
Because last year's Film Awards was epic.
Yes.
And this year's is going to be as epic, if not more so.
Yep. That's the plan.
And you had mentioned to me early on in the first set of discussions you and I ever had together that you wanted to do San Diego Film Week. That one of the long-term objectives was to do a San Diego Film Week.
I can't actually remember when that idea came out.
I've talked to people who've known you longer than me, and they all said, "Oh yeah, she was talking about that real early on."
Okay, well, good.
So you've been driving towards this Film Week thing for a while.
We've had a logo for years. I made someone make a logo before we ever did.
And then as soon as I
Film
saw
Week.
it, I said, "You got to change it."
No, but they made a logo maybe a year before we even started making moves on it. And then when we started making moves on it, I was like, oh, wait, we already made this logo. So we used that to when we were down at the TMD trying to get some
Which was
tourism money.
Which was 1 year ago.
Yeah.
Now.
So, yeah, we've had a logo for 2.5 years out of our 4 years of being in existence. So I guess was part of the long-term plan. I'm not sure it was ever the original plan, but I think when you sort of dreamed out the scenario, how far or how we would need to evolve, eventually it made sense to create something like that.
So for those who haven't been paying any attention to Facebook, there's very few of us who are.
There's several people.
What exactly is Film Week going to be? Because we're only 8 days out from it. No,
eight's a strong word.
No,
we're like
5 days out. Yeah. Ooh.
Don't scare me.
5 days to Film Week, and then it's 10 days of insanity, right?
Yes.
So give us the elevator pitch. What is Film Week?
Well, Film Week is a 9-day long event that showcases a couple different things. One, local films. We have over 100 local films screening during that week, including about 85 short films and commercials and music videos produced here in San Diego, as well as about 15 feature films produced in San Diego. But on top of that, it starts...
What's the big?
It starts to bring in... Film Week starts to bring in sort of a more of our greater film community. The Film Consortium has been around 4 years, but there are film festivals in San Diego that have been around 30 years. There's over 30 film festivals in San Diego. There's film organizations that have been working in the city for years. So this is the week to sort of celebrate and showcase all of that. So Film Week has 7 film festivals. There'll be best of screenings from film festivals like San Diego International, Latino Film Festival, Asian Film Festival, Horrible Imagining.
I was in the second Asian Film Festival.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Aren't they like 30 years old?
No.
24.
They're old, but
17.
They're not that old. They're about 17.
One of these groups is 30 years old. I saw it somewhere. Anyway, GI Film Festival San Diego's involved. The 48-Hour Film Project is involved. We actually have one screening from a group out of LA called the New Filmmakers LA, and they're showing pretty much some of their best short films. So, it's a 10-day long sort of showcase of all of that. We have workshops from all the different organizations in town that do educational workshops on their own or can teach something about, marketing and distribution. We got the San Diego filmmakers. We got the Veterans of Film and Television coming down from LA to do a workshop. We've got Screen Actors Guild coming down from LA to do a workshop. So we've got a little bit of everything for filmmakers, for film lovers, for people who are coming up and new, for people who have been doing this a while. Got a lot of different stuff going on. It's a lot of stuff.
I think what I've really enjoyed as I've watched it evolve over the last couple of months, and to be clear, I'm not part of the organizing of Film Week. I do a lot of stuff with Film Consortium. Intellectual Entertainment does a lot of stuff with Film Consortium, but like all the decisions you're making, I haven't had anything really to do with any of that.
No.
So I've had the fun on this one, unlike the Film Awards where I kind of interject a lot of my opinion into a lot of what goes on.
Yeah.
I've been able to kind of sit back and just kind of go, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen.
Yeah.
and a lot of people have been asking me questions like, whoa, what's going on? What can I expect? Are all the films announced? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not really in the day-to-day of it. But being outside of that, what I've really enjoyed watching all the different workshops kind of become announced and all the different film festivals in town that you've managed to get to jump in board and be a part of it, and all the organizations like SAG and San Diego Filmmakers, and you've got Brandy from the Film Office coming in, and we've had this conversation periodically for the last couple of years, that transition from community to industry.
Yes.
And what I see in the Film Week and the way you've structured things is there's a recognition of both.
Yes.
And I think that's incredibly cool. And in that way, it's the community, all of us who just enjoy films and enjoy kind of having a good time making them on the weekends. We can go to Film Week and really enjoy the kind of fruits of that labor. But then the rest of the group that are looking to do this as a career and pushing to improve and build upon the things that we've been doing the last few years and try and get to a point where, we can make a living at this. There's that aspect to Film Week as well, with tools to improve what we're doing and learn how to interact with SAG and permitting and all the next steps beyond just being communal.
Yes.
And I think that's incredibly cool. I think it's cool the way you've built that all together.
Thank you. Well, I think it was important for us to focus more on education. It was important for us to bring in a wider audience, for our films. Mm-hmm. I'm a little selfish in that. I also think we have a lot to offer the greater film community. All the film festivals we approached said yes, immediately almost. Sure, we'll be a part of it. Because I think they saw that benefit of being a part of this thing even greater than them, where they're going to get to give more, we'll say give more exposure to their filmmakers that they selected. Now they get to say, hey, now we get to select you for Film Week. You're up for some awards. There's some more legs on some of the stuff that they do. So I think I agree. I want to make sure that there was a lot of local films, and there is, a lot of local films in there. I was amazed by how many feature films were submitted this year, and that we're even able to show 15 feature films. It's kind of insane. There's this community here, but we do have in place a lot of the organizations and systems and people and structure to have an industry. It just needs to come together and work together. And really, that's what this week will be about.
Yeah, there was a lot of fragmentation 2 years ago when you and I first started, spending any sort of time together. And it was one of the things that was very clear to me as I started the podcast and focusing in on San Diego more. And as I've become more involved as an active member of Film Consortium, that fragmentation was really cliquey early on. And I think I've started to see some of the cliques, like the barriers between cliques starting to come down, and people are collaborating more and integrating with one another's film teams more. And even the organizations seem to be kind of more in tune with one another about how do we all work together to make things bigger and better. And Film Week's kind of a, next evolution of that progression. it's been really fascinating to watch kind of everything changing in the last couple of years. And you've been at it longer than I have as far as that goes.
4 years. Well, to that point, one thing I noticed this year was a lot of filmmakers were attached to a lot of different projects.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm seeing a lot of people that I don't even necessarily know that will say, oh, there were four of my films are in Film Week. I was DP on this one, or I was AD on that one, and I did sound on this one. A lot of the films had 3 or 4 production companies attached to them.
Right.
When you watched them, there was 3 or 4 production companies represented in the credits. So I would agree. I was kind of surprised as to, I think in the past, we haven't had somebody with like 7 films in one of our events. Not that they made every single film, but they were a part of every single of 7 different films.
Yeah, well, I mean, like myself, I've got my 3 that I produced plus What's the Vig, that's 4. But then I was also camera guy on Daydream Hotel.
Yeah.
And I want to say there's at least one other film in the mix that I worked on, but that's 5 or 6 films for me that I have in the mix of things going on that I've been a part of, which is really cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing I noticed this year. There was a lot more of that happening. So yeah, I think you're right. I think the organizations maybe have a little ways to go. Some of the ways I think forward on this, like for example, I imagine we can do screenings, going forward that are, one film from 7 different film festivals,
mm-hmm.
all in one screening.
Right.
We could do our little new TV show that we're creating with short films. We could do a film festival edition where we get to the films from the festivals get to give us a film, to include in a special edition of it that isn't necessarily just local stuff. I imagine that the Film Consortium hopefully can, let's say, create a screening at all these different film festivals of local content that fits the criteria of that festival. There's a lot of different paths that have opened up that we could pursue, going down the line, that I think will continue the mission and the goal.
Now, the venues, Museum of Photographic Arts,
yes,
is primarily where the short films are showing, correct?
Yes, and the film festivals.
And the film festival films.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Third Space in University Heights.
That's where the workshops are happening.
That's where all the workshops are happening. Mm-hmm. And then Digital Gym is where the feature films are all screening.
Yes.
That's quite a spread.
Yes.
Of locations. Long term, what's your goal for Film Week is in terms of how to put it on? Like, are you looking down the road for it to be kind of one venue, lots of stuff going on, or do you see it being more of a citywide kind of event that happens over the course of the 10 days? Yeah,
I mean, I don't see this as something we personally produce every part of Film Week. We did that this year just because
it's the first one.
We got to do it. Got to do it once to make it happen, figure out what worked and what didn't work. But there's 35 film festivals in town, and there's physically impossible for us to produce a segment or a screening for every single one of the film festivals in town. So we picked essentially the largest ones, we'll say, or kind of the top ones, or the ones we had strong relationships with. That in the long run, we would like to incorporate all the other film festivals in this, but I see it more as we're the sort of marketing center of it. Mm-hmm. Like, we sell the tickets, we have the website, we promote it, we do all the PR, things like that, and we produce the opening event, we produce the closing event, we produce the local film segments of it. But in the long run, I could see and would really like this to be spread across the whole county. Like, if the Premiere Pro user group does a special event, they do their own special event, they plan it, they schedule it, and we sort of become the umbrella for that, kind of like how Beer Week does it.
Right. So you're the centralized hub of all information, but each individual little thing can be essentially co-produced by the individual organizations that are participating within Film Week.
Yes.
I think that's cool.
Yeah. That's my hope.
Because each of those festivals, they have their own relationships with different theaters across town. Like La Costa's at the Sinopolis and in La Costa, and they could probably set something up there. That's a really nice venue. Yeah, I think that's incredibly cool. Certainly, all
It'll
of us
take a ways to get there.
All of us North Countyers would love a couple things up here. That'd be great.
Exactly. Like, you got the great theaters up here that things can happen in, but can we physically produce 75 events? No, there's just no way.
Well, getting to that too, a couple people have asked me recently. They noticed that there hasn't been very many, Film Consortium events in the last 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
And this is a leading question because I kind of know the answer
Thank
already.
God.
But
just kidding.
You want to explain to people why there has been kind of a retraction on the number of Film Consortium events that have been going on?
Well, it's a couple different things. One, it's exhausting to put on events. And we did a lot of events for the first couple years, and that was really exhausting. And I felt like after the last Film Awards, I got sick, and I just felt like we needed a little bit of a break. And, I think a lot of the networking has happened. Like, people are relatively well networked. I'm not saying there aren't always new people who want to come into the community. I'm not saying there aren't new ways that we can network. I've thought of some interesting networking events that we could create. But I just think, the networking events take a lot of time and energy, and I think we need to shift our focus and attention away from that to more of, distribution and funding and education, like things that are going to advance us to the next level. Just knowing each other is great, but that's not really going to push us to where we need to go. In addition to this, I feel like a lot of the filmmakers have started having their own events. I see a couple times a month premieres for local films, local short films, feature films, whatever. And that to me was like an indicator of, maybe we can step back a little bit from that role, focus on the things that are really important to us to move forward, and be more of like a support of those type of events instead of being the one always producing those type of events.
Right. Which then allows you to kind of get out of the way of the filmmakers who want to put on events like that too.
Yes.
So I remember when we did one of our live podcasts / film screening events, it was like sandwiched in between Film Consortium events and a couple other things that were going on in town. And it was just hard to get anybody not interested, but just like, oh man, I want to be there, but I've been out 4 days in a row. And it just kind of became this whole thing. But, in the last year or so, Ryan Castleman and Yvette had their film event, and they brought in a whole bunch of local films to screen alongside their premiere. And Lou Martinez had his event, the Night of 1,000 Burritos, which is still like the coolest name for an event yet in town. But that was a really cool night too, because it was a whole bunch of films from local filmmakers. And I remember sitting there thinking, wow, this is like a machine moving on its own now.
Yes.
Like all the venues know that the filmmakers are here and are willing to open their doors to them. And the filmmakers all want to do it now, which is really cool.
Yes.
Life in Reels had an event as well.
I didn't get to go.
A year ago. And that was a really good one too. So, I mean, I think a lot of the groundwork is there, and like you said, Film Consortium needs to be looking at the next thing, right? The next thing, because that kind of wheel is spinning on its own now.
Yeah, exactly.
That said, Film Week's your next step, and it's going to be followed a few weeks later by the Film Awards.
Yes.
What can people expect from the Film Awards this year?
The Film Awards I'm just so happy with how the Film Awards has developed over the years. It's gone in such a great direction. But we're at the Music Box this year again, just like last year. So we have another beautiful venue. We've got the same great team on board making this happen. We got Fale directing it. And, we're really just trying to make it, it can't be much bigger because it did sell out last year, but better. The other thing, this will be airing on CW6 and during prime time. So we'll have commercial spots and things like that going on ahead of time for that, and a lot of promotion for that. So we've definitely got, we're going to have a lot more eyeballs on it this year. Mm-hmm. And we're still kind of working out a lot of the details. Like Film Week has taken a lot of focus, but I think we're just gonna have another great show this year. Yeah. Another great time.
As a member of the Film Awards team,
yeah,
nobody on the team is like nervous.
Yeah,
there was a lot of nervous energy this time last year.
Yes,
and I noticed that everybody seems to just be way more chill about it this year.
Yeah, well, I think everyone Fale's worked in that venue a couple times since then, and.
Right.
We did it, and we kind of figured out what didn't work, and we're trying to remedy that through a couple different ways. So I think having a lot of, that experience really helps you move forward. Mm-hmm. So
I remember making the move out of the Horton Grand over to Music Box. I mean, just making that move alone was something that was pretty hemmed and hawed about,
Yeah, Fale likes to point out how I argued with him about it every time I bring it up. I just want to remind you that you didn't want to leave the Horton Grand. And I'm like, well, I'm not always right, okay? Yeah. I'm not saying I wanted to leave that. We had a good relationship with those guys, and they'd really helped us out a lot. But the Music Box is definitely more the style that we would want to go with. And
yeah, I was glad that Fale and Chris and Naomi went to the event there that kind of opened their eyes to that being a potential avenue for the Film Awards. Because I'd been sitting in meetings with us by the time they went there. I'd been arguing in meetings for months.
Oh, yeah.
that we need to leave the Horton Grand.
I didn't hear it. I'm like, shut my ears. What? Dissent?
Every
leave
meeting
my country.
Meeting would start. And you'd be like, oh, what's the first order of business? We're leaving the Horton Grand. No, Dave, we're not. But
well, I'm not always right.
Well, I wouldn't say you were wrong. I mean, there were definitive, bonuses to staying at the Horton Grand that you saw and could understand and were tangible. But, it's growth is hard, right?
Yes.
It's always hard. Change and even in something as young as the Film Consortium, just changing gears and taking that step into the unknown is difficult. And we as artists and filmmakers are constantly doing that struggle, right? Like, oh, I know how to make this particular movie.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep making it over and over and over again.
Yes.
Right? And then taking that bold step and working with other people or expanding your film crew from 4 people to 30.
Yes.
Those are big jumps, and sometimes you stumble when you do them, but you need to be doing them.
Yeah. I mean, Film Week feels like a giant risk. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of things going on. I'm really happy with how it's developing, but you never know. You never know what's going to happen with an event. People still got to show up.
Right.
People still going to show up for that thing.
Right. Well, and there's all the little stupid things that can trip you up a little bit too, right? Like I know you've been having issues with the ticket sales on the website because of a SSL issue, right?
Yes.
So people's browsers have been saying, this is not a real site. And you got to fix it and then hope that people are smart enough to delete their browser cache and so that it works the next time they go there. But it's always little things like that. There's so many little variables involved in migrating to your own system off of somebody else's system, because you've been using Eventbrite and systems like that.
We had to build a full brand new website for this thing.
Yeah, so it's a whole new website.
Full website. I mean, that thing took us
completely new from the ground up website for film.
Yes, in 3 weeks. Which there was a learning curve on that, and for the most part, we figured it out really quickly. And
really, everything works.
There were little details.
There's just little tiny, check this box and pay this fee, so that you don't get a you don't get a warning error when someone goes to the checkout. And it's frustrating. But oftentimes those are the sorts of things that you only figure out once it happens too.
Well, and that's kind of my point. It's like my goal this year is to just do it.
Right.
Like we gotta do it. I think it's a great idea. I think it brings us to another level. I think it opens up a lot of doors, and I think down the line we'll look back, and I actually already look back on our film festivals and go, wow, this is way better than that, the Fall Film Festival. Nothing wrong with those things, but I feel like this is something that like a lot more people can get behind. Mm-hmm. It isn't just local film. It isn't just this sort of small niche thing. There's a much wider community appeal to it. And it's a familiar sound. It's from, a week, restaurant week, beer week, film week. It's not a big jump from what people are used to. So I think in the long run, it's a great idea. But in the short term, there's a lot of challenges with making it happen. And you just got to do it. There's no way around it. There's no way around doing it. It's the same with film. I always say this to my students. I'm like, you don't make film by talking about, you don't get better at film by talking about film. You get better at film by making film.
Right.
We can watch a movie all day long and then we can go and try and make something that looks like that. And it's going to look nothing like that because there's so many other factors besides talk that come into play.
You can sit and be a critic of something. It doesn't mean that you can actually step outside and do it.
Yes.
Like it's not until you actually go out and start doing it that you actually learn the tools to do it.
Yes. And this is true. I mean, we've had to sort of crash course learn this stuff. I personally had to, I like to learn things, even though I may not in the long run be the one doing them. I like to learn them. So I've spent 40 hours on that website personally, building that thing and figuring it all out and making it look pretty. And, but one thing I'm proud of this event, it's kind of exactly what I imagined. Well, we haven't done it yet, but on paper, it looks like what I wanted it to look like. That
schedule looks like what you wanted.
It looks like what I wanted. And what I wanted was this beautiful array of local films. I wanted this sort of like powerful sounding array of film festivals involved that everyone already has name recognition for. And I wanted some great sounding workshops that are really going to help educate people about the things that they need to know in this industry. And then the last part about that is I wanted sort of us to start building our relationships outside of San Diego. Mm-hmm. So there's 2 screenings during the event. One is called San Diego Loves TJ. It was initially San Diego versus TJ, but I was overruled in a democratic manner by some guy, David Dawson. And
I'm not big on the negativity.
I'm happy with that decision. So there's a San Diego Loves Tijuana screening. SD Loves TJ, and that is a group of films from both sides of the border. And that's playing at the Museum of Photographic Arts, but it's also playing down in Tijuana at the Cine Tonalá, which is a new theater down on Revolution that some very good friends of mine own.
Well, that's very cool. That's happening during Film Week in Tijuana?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yes, and it's free.
I don't think I got that looking at the website.
Well, because I haven't figured out how to put it on the website. Because it's free. And it's not in this country.
Can you just put it up without a buy tickets button?
Well, I guess you could buy tickets. We can make it work. We can get it on there. The other one is
you heard it here first, folks. There's going to be a Tijuana screening of films. Like that's going to be cool.
Yeah. They might not be subtitled in Spanish. We'll just work on that next year.
Do we know what day of the week that's going to be?
I believe we do actually. Hold on.
Get your pens, pencils.
Get your pens.
Ready. You want to write this down?
Pencils. So SD during San Diego Film Week, February 16th. Which is a Wednesday.
Is it a Wednesday? 16th?
No,
that's a Thursday.
Thursday.
So that's the same night as the Right in the Feels drama.
Yeah. So it does coincide with that, but this is really focused on getting people in TJ to come out to see the films. It's not so much focused on getting us because we'll actually have a chance to see this up in MOPA as well.
Right.
So the goal was to kind of do something down there. I'll be at that screening while you all are at the drama screening. But the other thing we have, which I think is what I was really proud to do, it's a little different than I imagined, but we are working with the New Filmmakers LA, which is a new organization that I've built a little relationship with over the last year or so. They're kind of like a consortium of LA. They just play locally. Well, they play more than locally produced, but they say 60% of their films are locally produced. They play films once a month, all different themes, short films, features. They have networking events. It's very, very similar. And I just, I feel like they're a good partner for us. And so they're going to, we're going to have a San Diego Loves LA. Although word in the street is San Diego does not love LA. But we can fake it till we make it.
Well, you know my stance on that.
Yes, I read on Facebook. We have a San Diego Loves LA screening down here on Sunday, on the first weekend of Film Week. So that'll be, and the goal of that as well is we'll be bringing down filmmakers from LA to network with. And we're going to have a similar screening up in LA at the New Filmmakers LA events later this year. In fact, we were trying to do that during Film Week. We're trying to have our San Diego Loves LA screening in LA, but unfortunately the dates that we had available were dates that they were already having an event in LA, so we weren't able to make it happen. So we agreed to make it happen later this year.
That's cool.
So we can meet some filmmakers up there, do some networking, show our films in LA.
I think that's great because, quite frankly, in the last 7-8 years, I've made more money working on films in Los Angeles that have allowed me to then come back here and make movies in San Diego.
Yeah.
So meeting more Los Angeles filmmakers and showing them that we can actually do good work, I think is great. It's fantastic.
Exactly.
They got money up there.
Yes.
in ways we don't down here. So
yeah. And, I'd really
wonderful.
like to get our films viewed outside of here. I mean, us all watching our own films is fun. Don't get me wrong. But the goal is to not watch our own films. The goal is to get other people to watch our films.
Well, if we can raise the awareness of San Diego films amongst parties like that in Los Angeles and other cities beyond over time, like Atlanta and New York, then winning something like the San Diego Film Awards carries a different weight.
Yes.
Because then they go, oh, films that come out of San Diego are good. And if these people are winning the awards down there, then that's something we need to be taking a look at. I mean, there's machinations going on for all of this that it all kind of threads together. And I think one of the things I've learned with you over the last couple of years is you see that in a way a lot of other people don't.
Yes, I've argued with those people over the years.
Yeah. And I think there's a bit of an altruistic manner in which you are proceeding forward that isn't so much about you, Jodi Cilley, and Film Consortium making a ton of money.
Really?
Although I think long term you do.
Rich right now.
But in the short term, you seem to be working more towards just helping build the reputation of filmmakers in San Diego and moving the whole group of them forward to the point where eventually we're all going to be making that money. But you got to connect the threads.
Yes, there's a lot of disconnected
all these little
threads.
Disconnected things need to be connected together for all that to happen.
When I started the Film Consortium 4 years ago, I knew 2 actors. And they were like guys that acted in a class once, in one film once. There's a lot of threads that needed to be connected. There's still a lot of it develops on the way. The opportunities come out of the things that we do. They're not always evident until we get to a certain point. Over the years, I've had a lot of conversation with a lot of different people who've had various forms of advice on different things. And I think, everyone comes from the intention of wanting to support and help things. And I don't always move on a lot of the things people say. And a lot of the reason I don't do that is because I always, although there's a lot of great ideas, it's really about timing.
Right.
I remember people telling me at the very beginning, that we need to be on, need to try and get film awards on TV. Yeah, but who the hell are we right now?
Right. It doesn't just happen because you wish it. It doesn't just happen
because you want it to happen. Yeah. That takes years in some cases. Or we should be networking in LA. Well, yeah, we should be networking in LA, but we're 6 months. And
to be fair, the film awards have taken years to get on the TV. Yeah. You did 2 years without television deals.
Yeah.
The third year was on Cox Channel 4.
Yes.
This next year it'll be on CW6, and then who knows where it goes the following year. So, I mean, that progression is happening, but it takes time.
Yeah.
And it takes doing the legwork.
Yes.
To get all that stuff in place. It's like, it's no different than all these people who are like, oh, I wrote a feature film script. I'm going to go out and produce it.
Yeah.
I should be able to raise money. Can you tell me where to go?
Yes.
It's not how it works. You have to build your connections. You have to find the people that you work with, and then find the people who can connect those threads that get you in front of the people that let you and allow you to pitch for funding.
Yeah, no, just because you say it's a good idea doesn't mean it's realistic, and especially at that specific time. I've had people...
But there's a lot of people who get really frustrated because they don't feel like it's happening fast enough.
Yeah, well, move to LA. You want to get into the industry that's already developed? It took how long to develop Hollywood? Like, let's be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 100-year-old system down there, or up there. But, an example, people have told me for years I need to be networking in LA, and I'm just like, we're not ready for that.
Right.
We're not ready for that yet. Well, imagine, they were saying that from the beginning. Were you there for the first films? I'm not saying they were bad, in case those people are listening. But they weren't great. And,
# what's the Vic?
And those films were not bad. They were kind of bad. This was a disconnected group of filmmakers that hadn't really learned a lot of things they needed to learn. And if I showed up in LA 4 years ago with some of those films, people would laugh me out of that place.
Mm-hmm.
Now I show up in LA and I have a whole different thing than anyone else that's walking in those doors.
Right.
I'm not showing up there like I'm a filmmaker and I need money. That's not my story. I'm not walking in there like, I'm a producer and I'm, maybe I'll help you. I'm coming in there with something that nobody else has, which is another market and another more resources and a talent pool and a database of films and a community of supporters. You said I said San Diego Film Week to a lot of people when I was at my last meeting up there, and everybody just kind of their eyes lit up. Oh, what's that? What's that about? Oh, I can maybe my films could be. There was that sort of whoa.
All I gotta do is travel 2 hours south and make some movies down there for a week.
Yeah, and that's what I kept saying. I'm like, hey, if you ever want to make a film cheaper with an awesome community in a beautiful city, we're 2 hours south. And, there were several interactions with people who were like, permits are free? What? Really? The police don't hate you? This is amazing.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of baggage that goes with shooting in LA that San Diego doesn't have yet.
Well, and I was up there for a party event a year or so ago, and a bunch of the filmmakers that I was at this party with, they're like, "Oh, you're from San Diego? What's going on in San Diego? I hear there's nothing going on there because the film commission's closed." I was like, well, yeah, the film commission closed, but, the mayor and everybody are working real hard to get that back up and running. But we're still making films down there. If you came down, there's still ways to make that happen, But for a lot of Los Angelinos, San Diego has just been a closed door. They haven't seen it as a place to come to. And like you said, you can't approach them until you've got
something to come to,
a certain amount of things in place for them to come down to.
Yeah.
If I was to have that conversation with those filmmakers now, it'd be a different conversation.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you're going to talk to Brandy at the San Diego Special Events and Filming Office. She will help you with all the permitting that you need to do. Here's the contact information. Here's the website. Like boom, suddenly the doors are open. And, you're looking for crew, if it's non-union, I've got a whole pool of people I can point you to.
Yes.
And it's just a very different reality than it was a year ago, 2 years ago. I was working on a feature film up in LA 2 years ago, and I knew at that point, the 8 people that I worked with down here on a regular basis, and that was it. And now I know a couple hundred filmmakers in town.
Yeah.
Of all varieties, from sound to editing to camera work, set design, makeup. Probably the only thing I'm really short on as far as people I know in town is a true costumer.
Yeah.
But, that'll come too over time as more of us start moving into films where we actually need costumers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a wildly different landscape than it was even just 2 years ago, let alone 4 years ago when you started Film Consortium.
Yeah, 4 years ago there was not a whole lot going on.
Yeah, 4 years ago, I wasn't even making movies in San Diego. I was working my office job at that point. I had walked away from everything here. And then 3 years ago, I jumped back in, but I was working on that film in LA, so really wasn't spending time in San Diego working on stuff. And then when I came back, essentially 2 years ago, and started making films in town again, that's when everybody was like, oh, there's this Film Consortium thing. You should check it out. They do mixers, and it's a chance to meet other people in town. I was like, meet other people in town? All my social anxiety started hitting, I'm like, I don't do that. But eventually I went to some, and, you specifically reached out after the 48 and said, hey, I really liked Unlucky Charms. You should submit it to...
Yeah, it was good.
Our winter. And I was
That's
like, oh, this lady called me. Like, okay, I can submit to that. Like, I like proactive people, even though I personally I'm not proactive sometimes because of my anxieties, but I was really impressed that you reached out. And so, I submitted it and then went to the screening and had a really good time and enjoyed talking to all these people and reconnected.
Yeah.
With people like Mark Atkinson, who I made movies with 10 years ago and then lost touch with.
Oh, really?
Right? So I made movies with Mark. Like we did What's the Vig and, a couple other things.
You just want to say What's the Vig
10 years ago. Well, it's a part of my fabric, and it's a really important part of the fabric of my life as a filmmaker. It's the first feature film that I produced. I DP'd it and I edited it. And, I learned a lot making that movie, which you'll be able to see just how much I've learned if you go watch my shorts and then finish the week with What's the Vig.
Yeah.
The Film Consortium brought me back into contact with people that I had lost touch with, like Kristen Chandler and Mark Atkinson and a few other people too. And I think that's wonderful. Like you were able to kind of provide that avenue for
I had
people.
no idea that's where you reconnected.
Yeah. I started seeing Mark around at different events, and then I was like, hey man, you should come do the podcast. And he did the podcast. I was like, why don't you stick around and keep doing the podcast? So that turned into him being a co-host here for over a year. So, but yeah, it's great. And now he's doing his Captain Quint stuff, and
you got a TV show.
Got his beer show, and
it's funny too.
He's getting in car accidents apparently. What the hell's that all about, Mark? Yeah,
Mark.
I'm glad you're out of the hospital, dude.
Yes. We love you, Mark.
Hopefully it's a good story, because the way he wrote it online, not very good story.
Booking.
He was very much vague booking. A car fell on me. I'm a statistic. What? Okay. We'll have to get that full story.
What statistic are we speaking of? The number of people cars fall on in a year?
I no idea. But no, Film Consortium was wonderful for bringing people back together, not just introducing new people. Together. You know,
we're awesome now.
Because I've said it a few times. I've been a member of the San Diego film community for a very long time.
Yes.
But one of the things that before Film Consortium, there were things that happened in town. So I went to the San Diego Asian Film Festival its second year. I had a film in the festival. I talked to Leanne Kim at like a luncheon that I went to, but nobody else talked to me at the luncheon. It was just Leanne Kim. She sat down with me and my co-filmmaker and like, so who are you guys? You know, and I'm like, oh, I made this film. And she's like, oh, good. You know, she's like, oh, good. It's you. And you are Asian.
I was just
because she's like, nobody's name like screamed Asian in the application, but we took a risk, and just because it was a great film and we accepted it. And that was like the extent of conversation I had at the whole festival with anybody involved. So it wasn't like, for me at that point in time, a good mixing opportunity. And then, we made What's the Vig, and that went into a couple of different festivals. And I had some of my college films in some festivals locally, but again, in none of those opportunities did anybody mingle really. There wasn't a lot of mixing going on. There wasn't a lot of, oh, hey, I liked your film, we should collaborate someday. Like it just wasn't encouraged. It wasn't part of the mix of how people were running things. Pia posted on Facebook a photo from the El Cajon Film and Video Festival from 2007. It was one of those Facebook memory deals, right? She posted it up, and we won a bunch of stuff at that year. And I'm looking at my little film team on this photo of all these people who won stuff on stage. Almost shoulder to shoulder with me is Pia, who I didn't know that I had ever met before until I met her at a Film Consortium event like a year and a half ago. And 2 or 3 people off of her shoulder, Bob Gardner.
Oh, that's awesome. Where's this picture? I want to see it.
And I'll show it to you. And I bet if you went through and looked through there, because Pia mentioned it in her response to my posting about it, that she's like, oh my gosh, there are a bunch of faces in there that I recognize now.
Yeah.
So it's just really interesting that we were such a disjointed, discommunicative group back then. And now we've got social media.
Yeah.
But social media existed then too, though. There was the MySpace stuff going on, and everybody was on MySpace when we made What's the Vig.
Okay.
So social media was around, like people were doing it. It wasn't Facebook.
Yeah.
But it was MySpace.
Yeah.
And I didn't remember anybody on What's the Vig who didn't have a MySpace page.
I always want to laugh when someone says MySpace. I just giggle internally.
it's like the infancy of the internet. And then people moved to Facebook, and then now there's Twitter and Instagram and all the rest. But it seems to have kind of settled into kind of a core group of things now. But we've got social media, we've got podcasts.
Yeah.
And I started podcasting. My very first ever podcast was on What's the Vig. I podcasted all through post-production on that. And nobody knew what that was at the time, but I was doing it. But now it's like people understand what a podcast is, and you don't have to explain it quite so much to the masses. And so we can communicate this way. And a lot of the communities listening to my podcast are listening to Indie Apocalypse. Lou, where are new episodes of Indie Apocalypse?
Lou.
He hasn't put a new episode up since August.
Lou.
And then Beth Accamondo's got her podcast, and there's Miguel Rodriguez, he has his Horrible Imaginings podcast. There's a lot of ways that people are communicating about film in San Diego and film in general.
It's a really good point. We probably should have.
There's a communication line now that wasn't there before.
Well, we should have. Looking forward to future film weeks. I want to incorporate a couple more things. The studios more that exist. The podcast would be a good one to incorporate more, as well as the theaters. There's a lot of great theaters in San Diego, all through San Diego, that I think would be great things to make sure that we incorporate and include in something like the future San Diego Film Week. But back to your earlier point, a lot of what made people talk in our events, because I think in most networking I've been to lots of film festivals and I've been to lots of different events, and you kind of go with your little core group of friends and you talk to them the whole time and then you leave, But that's what I didn't want to have happen with the Film Consortium, because, and it's hard to talk to someone you don't know. And kind of the way that we remedied that was through the Pitch Fest. Because the Pitch Fest was there to give people an opportunity to talk about their projects, but it was also there to give people a reason to talk to these people.
Right.
If you just walked in a room, we're standing there talking to somebody, I have no idea who you are and what you do, and the chance of me walking up to you and going, hey, dude, who are you? What do you do? Are pretty much slim to none. It's uncomfortable. We're all artists. It's so it's awkward. But if you just get off a stage talking about a project that sounded interesting to me, now I have something to talk to you about.
Right.
And that's what kicked off, I think, a lot of the communication and people. I think now, people bring new people on their sets and we meet people through projects. And, you have this whole group of people. Like I see people that come around, I don't even know who they are, who are close friends or have worked closely with people that I work with closely. So now we start to know that that each other exists. And now there's different ways of connecting with each other that didn't exist. But at the time, nobody was really working together. So that Pitch Fest gave that platform for people to, approach to like say, hey, here's what I'm doing. And then everybody could go, boom, that person, I want to work with them. And that's I think why that's different than like a film festival, right? You go to the film festival to watch your movie with your friends. You're not, although in theory it's a networking event, there's not a whole lot of, we'll say, what's the word when they have like exercises and like we didn't go, okay, now find 5 people and ask them what their favorite color is.
There's no filmmaker trust falls going on.
No, but we made it about projects and making projects. And we didn't make it about talking about things. We made it about, okay, I want to do this. People who want to do this need to pitch. That's why in our opening party on the 10th, we're having a pitch fest for new people to pitch new ideas, or for people who want to meet new people to pitch ideas. I had a funny conversation with a filmmaker a couple days ago, and he says, should I pitch? Like, or is there going to be like a crap ton of people there? And I think that's kind of the problem once you've done this for a while, is that you don't necessarily want to announce your project on the platform. You don't need 40 people to get back to you. But if you're brand new in this and you haven't met everybody and maybe know 1 or 2 people, that is what you need to do. Maybe you
I would say to anybody who's a little worried about the size of the crowd, you're not going to get 40 people responding back to your pitch. It's not the way it works.
Yeah, that's how it worked at first.
But there's enough stuff going on in town.
Back then it was like Shark
people
Day.
Aren't that desperate to find things to work on. So, pitch your project and you're going to find the 2 or 3 people who are going to be passionate enough to jump on board with you, and you'll be in good shape. Like don't be afraid of the size of the crowd. The size of the crowd actually works in your favor, because you're more likely to find the 2 or 3 people that are available to help work on your film and are interested in doing so. Whereas when it's a smaller crowd, especially like I said, now everybody's so busy doing things, it's harder to find the people who have the time to jump in with you.
Yeah.
Like the bigger the crowd, the better at this point.
And I think it'll be a goal of finding new people who aren't necessarily busy all the time, or people who want to get on projects and have. I mean, we had a volunteer orientation the other day, and a bunch of people came that I've never seen in my life, any of them. And they were excited. And they wanted to meet each other. And when I left that place to go home, they were all gathered outside, just animatedly talking to each other.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, oh my goodness.
The parking lot conversations that go till 2 a.m, 3 a.m.
This this sort of networking thing that we've started, I think it matters to, especially if you're new here, new in the city, new in the industry, just out of college. Maybe you don't have that network like some of us do. Like with me, like there's so many people that we have access to and that we work with and have wanted to work with and, try to work with that if a project starts to happen, it's like, I don't have to start from scratch. Like I already, know key people I can get for certain roles would be really good. And usually it's 1 or 2 roles that we haven't been able to fill. It's not all the roles,
Right.
And vice versa, there's probably plenty of people out there that don't want to go and work on some new filmmaker's film. But other people need to go through that same process we went through to get where we are.
Right. Because there's many stages.
Yes.
So
the next generation of film consortiumers need to start coming up.
There was something that happened this weekend that just made me giddy with happiness, actually. 10 years ago on What's the Vig, I met a young man named Diego Robles.
I know that name.
Diego Robles and his cousin Leon, both of them showed up on our set of What's the Vig. They were like 19 at the time, and full of questions. Yeah. And Diego ended up like just joining our film crew and learning how to be a filmmaker by cutting his teeth on What's the Vig. Flash forward 10 years later, I got Diego and Leon to direct the second film of our double feature this summer in the 48.
Yeah.
So I directed Bittersweet Fortune and they directed Discontinuance, which they knocked it out of the freaking park. And they got to meet and work with Mike Peterson.
Yes.
Like my latest,
which is my student.
Wonderful find, who's your student.
Yeah.
And Mike is one of my favorite people in our community.
That's
and I think incredibly talented. And I saw this weekend, had no idea. I saw it on Facebook. There they are working on a set on Dallas's project together. And I was like, oh, I love that.
That is awesome.
That was just incredibly cool because.
And also to add to that, 3 of my current team producers were their PAs.
That's fantastic. But Diego has been a filmmaking partner of mine for a decade. And Mike's like the newest member of my intellectual family. And they've come together on their own because of their association with me. And I know that they're going to just bang out an incredible show for Dallas. And I was so excited to see that they were working together. You know,
that's awesome.
It made me just happy. I was like, ooh, they're working together. Sweet, So I love it. I love that through this interconnectedness, it's like I don't own the rights to these people, but the fact that they work with me means they were able to be exposed to each other, and I wouldn't have been exposed to Mike if it hadn't been for Film Consortium, and all this stuff kind of works together, and I just think there's going to be cool stuff coming out of all of this.
Yeah, it's only going to get better. It just takes a while, It's been 4 years, which to me is unbelievable, actually. Unbelievably fast. Yeah. This stuff takes a while. Relationships take a while. If you look at group development theories, and how groups form, and I'm always kind of guess where in the process we are. For example, there's one theory that's forming, or there's 3 stages. Forming would be the first stage. Storming would be the second stage, where everyone just starts fighting. It's like the real world, Mm-hmm. Everyone shows up the first day and they're cool. And everyone's trying to figure each other out.
Oh, believe me, I've been going through the stormy period with Intellectual the last year. So
yeah, and I
get it.
Yeah, and then you get to a point where the real world, where everyone starts just drama. And that's where the real world likes to keep people. That's what they
turmoil.
That's where they want them to stay. But if you continue through that, eventually you get called norming, where everyone sort of figured each other out and have established sort of a social contract, we'll say, on how to work together, and that's where real work gets done. Mm-hmm. And, I would call us, we're still, I'd say late phase storming. still people don't get it. There's people who don't understand. There's people that get angry. There's people that get feel upset when their ideas aren't enacted, and there's still stuff like that. But I see it less and less, and I think I see more and more of the, camaraderie and the like. We can do this together, and the belief that we can do this here, because the first issues and the first conversation I ever had with people just didn't get it. They didn't see how a bunch of, I'll use Eric Staley's favorite term, they didn't see how a bunch of scrappy filmmakers were going to build an industry in San Diego. They just didn't see it. So they thought the lowest hanging fruit was go to LA and bring work. Right. And how many times I had that argument with people where I'm like, no, I'm not saying it's not a good idea. It's just not my idea. It's not what I'm going to do. That has all been gone from the conversation. Nobody brings it up anymore. Not maybe because I don't listen, but also because I think people, hopefully it's because people understand and see that there's value in this idea, and that it's got legs, and that it's happening.
I also think people have watched people we love make the move to LA in the last couple of years too, and it hurts now in a way it didn't hurt before. It's like, oh, they just left us to go to LA.
Insert list of names here.
Fuck LA, like there's a bit of that like going on too, like, and I don't think that sense of betrayal didn't exist really before. It was like, oh yeah, you go to LA is the natural progression. That's where you're supposed to go, like go do it. And I still encourage people to go do it, but I don't think everybody has to go do it anymore. Yeah. And for us to build an industry here, some of us have to stay.
Yeah. Yes.
Some of us have to stay, but maintain the ties and the communication, that open line of communication with what's going on in Los Angeles.
Yes.
So it's not an either or kind of thing anymore. But it's been a lot of fun. Like I said, I've been making films in San Diego since 2000. So 17 years now I've been making movies in San Diego. And as a student, as an independent, as a working professional, kind of across the board. And the last 3 years as a podcaster as well, with a very focused eye on what's going on around here. And the last 3 years have been the most exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely fun.
Of all the time.
I hope so.
I mean, What's the Vig was really fun to make.
I'm sure.
It was super exciting, but for completely different reasons.
Yeah.
It was just because we were venturing into territory, we probably weren't really ready for, but, you got to cut your teeth and do the things you're going to do. But, no, it's exciting to have Film Week coming. And
yeah, I'm excited for it too.
I'm really looking forward to it. And we're doing red carpet Friday night.
We should talk about that, by the way.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But we're going to be live streaming it.
Yes.
Right? So that starts at 6:00.
Yep.
And runs right up until 7-ish when the actual gala event begins. So all of you who are, done up and ready and you're making your way and you're battling traffic to get to the Lafayette, if you're not the one driving, if you're passenger, open up your phone and go to Facebook, and you'll be able to observe what Jesse and myself and Whitney Wegman hosting the red carpet.
Keith, actually,
from the Lafayette. Keith,
yeah.
Last I talked to Fale, he was talking about Jesse.
Yeah.
So, but it'll be either Jesse or Keith, which is totally cool. So you got Tonight in San Diego and the Intellectuals hosting the red carpet. It's going to be a complete from the carpet, E at the Emmys style. We're going to talk for an hour and have people come and go as they arrive. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, very excited for that part. We actually have some really cool stuff going on there too. We've got some stormtroopers coming out to guard the red carpet.
501st.
We've got the steampunk Star Wars.
That's so cool.
I cannot wait. I can't even tell you how many pictures I'm going to take.
The nerd in me is just like going nuts.
I know. God, and we've got sand troopers. We've got a bunch of stuff going on. 15 cosplayers will be coming out.
That's amazing.
Yes, and we got a new actor showcase. We'll be showing some reels from actors. We got a pitch fest. So we can get some new projects off the ground. And it's at the beautiful Lafayette Hotel Swim Club. We got food. I mean, it's gonna be a good party.
And it is the kickoff of something incredibly special.
Yeah.
This will be the only first ever gala of the first ever San Diego
One
Film
day
Week.
say you were there.
You can say you were there at the beginning.
Like, I went to Comic-Con when it was... Just kidding.
No, well, yeah. I mean, that should be the goal, right?
When it was just in a...
At some point in time, somebody should be going, oh my gosh.
Some guy's house.
You weren't there when, like... I think that's cool.
It's fun to watch things grow,
Yeah.
It's fun to be a part of something else bigger. And I think what's beautiful about film is it's so open to everybody. Everybody likes film, and it's open to different perspectives, and so many different people can tell unique stories. It's just, it's fun. It's not it's not math. It's creative. It's kind of got it all.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming in.
Sure.
You made the drive all the way to North County, which made it easy for me.
Here I am.
Of course, you're going to saddle me into doing some work, I'm sure.
I'm not sure yet. We'll see. I think it's more just other stuff. We'll
so if people want to buy tickets to anything at Film Week, it's sdfilmweek.com.
Yes.
Tickets are available for sale right now. If you get a error message, try clearing your browser's cache.
Is that what it
then
is?
Try it again. Yeah, it's possible.
Did you try and buy a ticket and see if it worked?
I actually ran through the system on my iPad today all the way up to the very point of purchasing, but I got through without the SSL problem.
Oh, interesting.
But I was doing it because somebody was asking me because they said they had an SSL problem, but I don't know if they had it today or if they had it a few days ago.
Yeah, we're trying to fix the little glitches in the system.
But it is true. Like if you've been to the site before and you got the error message before, it's entirely possible that your browser cache is still loading an old version of the page. So clear your browser cache, start over, order your tickets. Everything should be working fine now. If they're not, I will whip Brian until they do work because Brian's been helping you out with that. And and we're going to see everybody at Film Week, San Diego Film Week.
Yes, it's very exciting. Come support local films.
Come support local films. Say hi to the intellectuals on the red carpet. Like I said, myself and Whitney will be working that Friday night. Intellectuals have 2 films screening at the 48-hour film project From Dream to Screen on Sunday night at 8:00. We also have In Situ in the Feels screening group on Thursday. And then for God's sake, why the hell wouldn't you come to the single most epic moment of San Diego Film Week, the closing screening, What's the Vig? You've heard about it incessantly on this podcast for 2 years. Huh? If it's not already sold out, says Brian. I know a lot of the film's cast is planning on coming.
Cool.
It's going to be like a mini reunion.
Awesome.
This is our 10th-ish anniversary screening because we were in festivals in 06 and 07. So yeah, even Brian's in the movie. I'm in the movie too. If you recognize my mohawk in silhouette.
Oh, that's awesome. In a silhouette. Oh boy,
so,
I can't wait for that one.
And
we're gonna make a game of it.
Kristen Chandler's in it. Carl Backus is in it.
Yeah.
Stephen Schwartz is in it. Mark Atkinson is in it.
Old school.
Jeff Merrill's in it. Who else might people recognize? There's Trish Anderson's in it. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of people. Rob Day. Rob Day's in it.
Oh my God, that's crazy. I know Rob Day.
It's it's quite a eclectic group of people from a long time ago. So come laugh with us. We're gonna have a really good time with it. I know, like Mark is just like so excited to poke fun at the movie all night long.
Is he excited or is he like horrified?
Oh, he's excited.
Okay.
Everybody's excited, whether they want to admit it or not.
I'm bringing booze, so that's all I know. Tequila shots every time.
We're gonna.
Mark shrugs.
I keep being told by Jodi that we're gonna make a drinking game out of the movie. So like, I'm curious to see what the rules of the drinking game are gonna be.
Well, I'm bringing toilet paper, alcohol, and the little like honking things. What? Yeah.
Those?
And you got to make up the rules because it's your film.
Oh, okay. I'll work on making up the rules.
Three things. Every time this happens, we do this.
I watched it again the other night.
Every time that happens,
trying to figure out what we would make the rules for.
I think every time the guy tries to look at Kristen's boobs.
Well, that's definitely one. Any time that the cameraman is focused on tits and ass, like that should be a drink.
Kristen says something about Mark shrugging a lot.
What's the big? It's going to be fun. I look forward to seeing all of you at Film Week. Make sure you say hi. I'll be the guy running around looking like me. So
there you go.
Well, I've lost a lot of weight. Yeah. And not everybody in the community has seen me since I lost weight. True. And I keep hearing from people. I didn't recognize you at first.
Put a hat on. It says David Dawson. Make intellectuals great again.
I'll probably be dressed a little bit nicer than you're used to. Red. I need to be wearing the red.
Yeah.
I'll wear the rose pink colored coat.
There we go.
I'll be wearing my rose pink colored coat.
There you go. Just look for that.
All through Film Week. How about that?
Yes.
All right.
Just wash it a few times. Could get kind of stinky.
Thanks for coming on the show again, Jodi.
Bye. Thank you.
Hello there, citizens. I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the floaty that will not flush no matter how many times you try in the toilet bowl of crime. I am Darkwing Duck, telling you please, talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. Whatever the heck that means. After all, you are watching Intellectual Podcast with your ears.